For this video, we will be getting an understanding on the techniques that is used to create our architectural lettering. You will need to use your lettering guide to create guidelines that will help you have straight, parallel, and horizontal architectural lettering lines when we are writing our alphabets or when we are writing names for our floor plans. Today we're going to discuss writing in a 1/4 inch lettering. And to do that, you will need this architectural lettering guide. On the guide, you will have it facing you so that it reads like a book from left to right. So the word lettering guide goes from left to right. On your lettering guide, you do have a turn dial that we will be turning. There are numbers along the top. These numbers along the top are our metric numbers located here. We will not use the metric. We're going to use the numbers along the bottom of our guide that range from 9 to 2 backwards. On your lettering guide, there is a small, I'll move that out of the way. There is a small line here, and we're going to line these numbers up on this line to create our heights. When we are trying to write in a 1/4 inch lettering, and for a 1/4 inch lettering, you will find your room names are written in this size lettering. You will simply turn your dial to the number 8. When you have it on the number 8, you will then begin to look at the circles or the dots on your lettering guide. Each set of circles is joined together by a loop or an arc that connects the group of 3. So at the bottom, you have your first circle that is connected to a third circle, and then in between those, about 3/4 inch in, you have another circle. So we're going to create 3 lines, one serving as the bottom line and the top line serving as the top line. And the distance between here will measure a 1/4 inch because we have our dial turned to the number 8. This third line that sits in this third circle will create another line that sits between the first 2. And that is again another guideline or the midpoint of our letters. Let's get into it. So placing my lettering guide on my parallel bar, I can begin to draw my guidelines. The first line that I'm going to create is the very bottom line. I'm going to stick my architectural pencil or mechanical pencil in the first circle and simply draw a line across my sheet of paper. I'm then going to move up to the third line that connects the arc and create another line in the opposite direction. From here, I now have my 2 lines, and they should measure already at a 1/4 inch. I'm going to check that by grabbing my architectural ruler or scale, and I'm going to find a 1/4 inch on the scale. I know from looking at this, from 0 to here is a 1/4 inch. So my first line and my second line should meet in between this space. So let's check. Placing my scale on these lines, I can see that they line up perfectly. And I have verified that that distance is a 1/4 inch. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and create this midline so that I can have a midpoint guideline that is 3/4 inch down. Here we go. This third line that is created here will now be our line that is a guide, so that all of our letters that have that third piece to them will all be consistent and even across my lettering. Now that we have the guidelines drawn, we can then begin to draw our letters or write our letters. So I'm going to start with the letter A. A lot of times it is a good idea to either use the side. What I have done is flipped my lettering guide because I'm going to use the angle on my lettering guide to create my letters that have angles. Another good tool is to use your 30, 60, 90 triangle as well. So in creating the letter A, I'm simply going to place my lettering guide down and begin to write or draw my first slash. And this gives me a nice clean line because I have a straight edge that I'm working with. Flipping it in the opposite direction, I can connect this and then draw the opposite side of my letter A. Because I have this midline, I can now create my slash. You can either draw straight across, or what I would like to do is use my parallel bar just to move it up to be sure that I have a straight line. When I'm creating my letter B, I'm going to again flip my Ames lettering guide, line it up, and use the straight vertical line to create the vertical line to my letter B. Now our letter B is written as such. So I'm going to use this midline to go ahead and connect my first arc or loop to my B to that line. And then I'm going to come off of this same midpoint to go ahead and loop around to the bottom. From here, I can write the letter C, and I'm just simply going to go from top to bottom. And then on to the letter D. Again, using my Ames lettering guide as a guide, in which it is, to create my vertical line, and then bring my arc all the way down. Notice that my letters go from the top line to the bottom line because the height of them are supposed to be 1/4 of an inch. So I am writing in 1/4 of an inch height for my lettering. When we have the letter E, we're going to draw our vertical line again down, move my parallel bar up to create my first line, going down to the midpoint, my second line, and then my third. Keeping everything consistent so that each letter looks as if it's within a box. There are times when you will have a slight slant or the lines may be above. So again, writing that letter E, it is okay to just give it a little bit of angle so that you can see those letters are distinct and they don't wash away or blend in with your guideline. Again, for my letter F, I would do the same. And for my letter G, it is just like writing the letter C, but you want to continue your circle up to this midpoint. So in doing so, I will stop where I want it to stop, use my straight edge to give me my line, and then create the rest of my G. For the letter H, we're going to have 2 vertical lines using my straight edge of my lettering guide, giving it a nice space. And then I have my letter H. For the letter I, it is okay to just simply draw a parallel line, a vertical line. For the letter J, you will have your vertical line. Sometimes you will see the letter J left without a top, and sometimes you will see it with a top. I wanted to show you both ways of that and the letter E because I've seen it a number of ways. Your preference, if you want to have slight slants on your lettering so that they won't blend in with your guidelines, is up to you. Whatever you choose to do, it is important that you stay consistent throughout your lettering and your drawing. With the letter K, you're going to have, again, a vertical line. And at this time, you can create your slashes using your Ames Lettering Guide. But I also want to show you, since we do have it for our video, you can also use your 30, 60, 90 triangle. And I am simply starting at the corner of the midline. And then I am going to flip my triangle to finish off my letter K. Again, it keeps everything nice and neat. For the letter L, straight edge. And my parallel line is more of an angle that is raised just above the parallel line at the bottom. For the letter M, you're going to have, again, 2 vertical lines. Taking my lettering guide or my right 30, 60, 90 triangle, I'm simply going to come down to one side, flip it to go up to the next side, and then I can keep my triangle up if I chose to use my triangle and bring the line down. And you have the letter M. Didn't connect here. There we go. For the letter N, I have my first vertical line drawn. Leave a space. And this is just showing you with using your triangle. You can then either draw a line to connect, or you can use your tools. I am going to go ahead and connect here. That is one way that I've seen the letter N. Another way that I've seen the letter N is to have your vertical lines, and it has been connected all the way down. When we are using the midline, it is best to keep all of your lettering consistent. So using this midpoint line for this one here, this N drawn, it just makes more sense to keep everything consistent. For the letter O, you're simply going to connect your circle from top to bottom. For the letter P, a vertical line, and then you will have your arc or loop, and it will end at your midpoint. For the letter Q, again, it is creating a circle. The letter R, as we begin to run out of space, again, your loop, you can use your lettering guide to bring the letter over, or you can freehand it. It's up to you, as long as whatever you need to make that straight angle. The lettering guide is a great tool not only to give you the guidelines, but it has all of the edges that you need in creating your letters. The letter S sometimes can be a little tricky, but it is essentially the same thing. Starting at the top, coming to the center or the midpoint and bringing that to where you began, and then curving back around. Keeping everything in a box. From here, I would like to show and demonstrate if we were moving down our scale and we wanted to write in 1/8 of an inch. Things for our drawings that will be written in 1/8 of an inch are our dimensions and also any special notes that we have on our drawings. To achieve the 1/8 of an inch lettering, we will take our lettering guide, again, turning our dial at the very bottom. We're on number 8. Let's move this down. But we want to go ahead and now move our dial to the number 4. It's a little blurry. So if I turn my dial clockwise to the number 4, I now have the 4 lined up with the slash on my lettering guide. Again, I am going to use the circles that are joined by the arc as my top and bottom in length, and that should measure 1/8 of an inch. And the third circle will give me a guideline to create that midpoint that is 3/4 of an inch down from the top line. So placing this yet again on my parallel bar, I'm going to move it down a little bit. Or actually, let's go above. I'm going to again start in my first loop to create my bottom line and just simply draw. Once you place your pencil inside of the circle, you can just move back and forth. I'm going to create my loop, finish my loop, and create the top line. And again, just back and forth a little bit. Let's go ahead and check and make sure that the top line to the bottom line does measure 1/8 of an inch. And if it does, then we were on the number 4, and that is correct. So it will fill in from 0 to the last mark. So placing my scale, I can see that yes, it does line up. I'm going to put 2 marks for visual and move it out of the way. And as you can see, it does measure to 1/8 of an inch distance. I'm now going to go ahead and create that midline and go in that center circle and slide across. And now we have those 3 lines drawn. I'm going to move in closer for you. So you have 1, 2, 3. Now, the 1/8 of an inch obviously is a lot smaller. So there's very particular writing that needs to take place. Continuing with our alphabet, I'm going to start with the letter T. Again, it's the same concept, just different lettering heights. I'm going to use my straight edge of my lettering guide to create that vertical line. And I am going to draw my mark above to create the letter T. The letter U, creating my first vertical line, my second vertical line, and then I'm going to simply join them, bringing the line, my angle up on the bottom line, just to give me some definition that I do have the letter U and it doesn't blend in with the bottom line. Some may see it and it's written like this, but you can't tell. So bringing this slash up a little bit gives it some definition, and you can tell that that is a letter U. So let's cross that one out. For the letter V, I'm going to use my triangle and just flipping the sides. I have now created my letter V. For my letter W, I have a vertical line. Now, with a W, it starts from the bottom. So we have a letter that looks as such. So now that I have the first vertical line, I am going to pull up my angled line to the midpoint. And then I'm going to bring it back down. And then I'm going to create my vertical line to connect it all. I'm going to draw that one more time. My vertical line, my angled line, Writing at 1/8 of an inch is a little tricky because it's so small, but you can do it. Bringing that vertical line down again. Have to do that to sharpen it up. And then using my straight edge to get it right on the dot where it ended and bring it back up. When we are creating the letter X, it is simply from top to bottom, flipping my lettering guide, coming across this midpoint line to give me the other side. Oh, I moved that, sorry. To give me my other side of my X. For your letter Y, I would stop it at that midpoint, just creating a small V on top, and then use your straight edge to make your vertical line. Now the Y written at 1/8 of an inch is very teeny. I'm going to move this down and show it to you alongside of my A on a larger scale so that you can see that a lot better. So what I did first was I used my angle on my Ames Lettering Guide to create the small V on the Y. Coming from the midpoint, I just drew the vertical line down. And now you have the letter Y. When you are creating the letter Z, it is simply creating your slash, taking your angle on your lettering guide, and then now you have your letter Z. So now we have two ways of, well, one way on this video of showing you how to use your lettering guide in two lettering heights. This is 1/8 of an inch. And this is 1/4 of an inch. When we are writing our alphabet, the same thing would apply when we are writing our numbers as well. So to show you your numbers at 1/4 of an inch, I have already drawn 1/4 of an inch height guidelines at the bottom here. Numbers such as the number 2 and 3, you will simply, we know for the number 1, you can just have a straight vertical line. For the number 2, again, you would create your arc. If you want to use your lettering guide to bring the number or your arc or your angle all the way down, do so. And then create your slash. Or simply just use the lines as a guide and circle it around, and then now you have your number 2. For the number 3, you will again start at the top line, come to the midpoint, and circle back around. For your number 4, and so forth for the remaining of your numbers. When we are writing the number 6, you will bring it all the way down and circle back up to that midpoint to connect it. When you write the number 8, you're going to create your first circle from top to the midpoint, and then for the bottom, you will go from the midpoint all the way down. And the number 9 will be the same. You're going to create your first circle. Take your lettering guide or straight edge to give yourself the vertical line. Please use this video to review and use it as a guide when you are working with your lettering guide and practicing your lettering in numbers.